Order.
Check your pen.
If you, yeah, I mean, if we could, yeah, that'd be.
Oh, there's 2 of the second one, I already know that. Yeah, 1 of 3 copies, please?
No, I don't need copies.
2 copies? Well, is anybody else coming, you think?
Probably not, but
This is the most exciting one of the week, though.
yes, I know. Well, I'm Counselor Carney and Counselor at Large Rudd. It's good.
Julie LaFave, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation.
Steve Harris, City Arborist.
Okay.
So we have upcoming items on the agenda. They're standard ones that come up every single year. They are to request authorization to pay instructors for our Fight for Hearts, yoga, tennis, and our African dance.
Okay.
And then we have another one, which I apologize, it's our first one. I'll make sure I have handouts next time. But we'd like to reallocate a capital account. It's currently allocated specifically just for soldiers and sailors for around $13,000. We can't do anything for that amount. So we would like to reallocate it so that we can purchase tablets and signage, historical signage at other locations.
Do you have a list of the areas that you'd like to do? Sure.
It's only $13,000, so I think it's 2 or 3 locations. Glenn's been working on it. I think one of them is along the Erie Canal, where the new trail will be.
Okay.
And I can't offhand think of the other one without seeing it on there.
Okay.
What's the tablet part?
Historical signage, historical tablet that
Oh,
restoring it or replacing it.
not.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. Like we have at the goat statue or
I got you.
anything like that, yes. Yes, not technology based.
Okay.
That's all, yeah, we will have more in the future, at future meetings, but this is, we're at kind of a
Yes.
standard right now.
So I guess I'd like to transition it if, you know,
So you're gonna call those items ready?
I'm going to call those items ready and move them forward.
Yeah.
And then if
Thank you.
There we
you
go.
know, Steve would like to give us a presentation on the
Trees.
trees.
Sure. I did print out what the presentation I've been doing at public meetings.
Yep.
Is the problem
know
the
what-
computer is not working?
No, we weren't sure how it was going to go down, what you would want to do. So I can go over it, and we can get as far as you want to go, and you can say it's time to call it.
So we've just started last week doing the actual public meetings, so that's where he is right now. So we wanted to get you guys up to speed on that because
Yeah.
eventually it will come to you for approval, correct, Steve?
That is correct. So we released the plan. We are very pleased with the article. You can have one if you want. And if we go to, they're double-sided, so, you know, the reason we're doing this, the why urban forest here is because of all the great things trees do for us. It's not a nice-to-have amenity. It's a must-have piece of infrastructure. And one of the biggest things we know is that a map of tree canopy is a map of income. There's a very tight relationship between the two. We know that neighborhoods of means have higher canopy than our poor neighborhoods, and that has significant public health consequences for residents. So we want to improve the disparity gap between neighborhoods. If you look at these 2 maps here side by side, we have the canopy cover map and the heat map. The light green is grass, the dark green is forest, and there's a wide swing. University Hill has 9%, Westcott has 38%. There are a variety of neighborhoods that have much less than Westcott. If you look at the colorful heat map, you can see that at 11 in the morning there's a 12-degree swing between the temperatures down in the valley at the Rand Tract and up at Destiny, USA. Now, if we did this at 6 p.m., that temperature difference would be even greater. You know, that's when it's hottest in the day and this concrete has time to absorb all the heat. A lot of public health consequences with this. One of the biggest one is that it's not cooling down at night in a lot of cities, and the CDC projects a 10-fold increase in heat-related deaths in the future.
I can give him mine. Okay, I'll ship them yours.
You can have this. You can keep it. I got it. So our goal is to look at neighborhoods like near West Side and South Side, North Side, Washington Square, that just have low canopy and they don't have what their partner neighborhoods have. The biggest thing that separates these are patches of forest land. So we went through a master planning process that began December 2017. And went through the summer, and then we did operational analysis with a consultant, looking at every department, every policy, how we spend money, looked at what the deficits are with the urban forest, and what do we need to get from where we are to where we want to be. That resulted in a plan that has 3 goals and 12 strategies. If you look at the steering committee for this, it was a broad-based steering committee. Of 27 people that helped us decide how to go about doing this. Then we had stakeholder meetings, which include Councilor Rudd and Driscoll. We had a variety of public meetings that Earth Corps led. And we had 8 public meetings, 300 attended, 1,200 people completed a public survey. People care a lot about trees. They had a lot of attitudes about trees. Then we looked at our urban forest. In between public input and our evaluation of what we have and how we're managing it, we highlighted some critical things about our urban forest. One of them is we know that it provides $9.1 million in annual benefits. Most of that is capturing particulate matter out of the air and keeping it out of our lungs and turning it into smog. We know that our canopy cover distribution is unequal, and we know that our natural areas are being overrun by invasive species, which are preventing natural regeneration. Councilor Carney, on the north side, it might be of interest to you, at Schiller Park, with the help of Magnarelli, we're going to do some forest restoration there. If you look at this picture, we removed a lot of invasive buckthorn, and we're going to replant with native trees to get a new canopy for the future.
So I guess just to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah, please.
I mean, ideally, are we looking to sort of go through public space to plant a lot of these trees? Or are we going to approach citizens about planting on their property as well? I mean, what are we ideally looking to do?
We're looking at using every possible avenue. Some of the big opportunities are, first of all, to integrate with existing large-scale initiatives. For example, the infill housing that the mayor announced, which includes 125 properties that either rental properties will be put on or home headquarter properties that'll become single-family homes. Have a meeting with that group tomorrow, MBD, Land Bank, Housing Visions, and home headquarters. We're going to talk about how we can maximize canopy and what resources can they put toward that, and what resources can we to create a larger scale effect, so that we know that when they're doing these properties, they're not just looking at the house in the lot, they're looking at the big picture of all the infrastructure. Some of that infrastructure is hooking up water, sewer, and gas, but what about the trees? So the idea is that can we get a minimum canopy coverage out of these properties? That's one example.
Yeah. So another, we had the meeting the other day at McChesney for the potential road reconstruction work in Butternut Circle, and a part of the, part of the plan that I think that everyone's sort of leaning towards adds additional trees lining the street when we do the Dig Once project. Is that something going forward that we're looking to do every time we do road recon and, Dig Once projects of that nature, that we're going to look to add trees along road?
Without a doubt, I think it's part of the plan. I've been going to the Dig Once meetings, so with the water commissioner and the DPW commissioner and I-team and Corey Driscoll, and one of the things that they're starting to recognize is that when they're doing these large-scale infrastructure projects, and they're trying to estimate costs of how much it's going to cost to put in new water and to do all the lateral connections. Every conceivable cost is being calculated: curb replacement, sidewalk repair, road repair. But trees haven't been part of that cost. They say, oh, and can you remove the tree after we take all these trees down? So they recognize that that's got to be a built-in cost to those projects. And butternut is the first, like, it's all new, right? So we're kind of figuring out as we go along, and hopefully that'll become more formalized and more standard operating procedure. So that's on our radar. The other opportunity related to trying to increase, another thing is, if we're going to do a focused approach to getting trees in the ground, and you look at who are the private property owners that we can impact, we looked at who owns the most grass, and we found that the land category religious owns the most grass, 1,700 acres. So that's a great opportunity to work with churches, and some of those might be places like Catholic Charities may own a third of that land, and see what opportunities there are, what's their interest for planting trees, and then can we find the resources to plant them. The most important thing is when you think about, there's potential canopy, which is the grass that was shown in that canopy cover map, and then there's possible canopy. Where does it make sense to plant? Because you're not going to plant everywhere there's grass. And then what's preferable? What can people live with? So it's kind of a tiered approach that you work with when you're dealing with all projects. We had a meeting yesterday with the school district in the mayor's office to talk about how to increase canopy on our school properties, and they brought up, Tom Farrar, that with the next joint school construction board, they can start thinking in those terms on top of everything else. That hasn't been part of their factors when they're thinking about what the new design is going to entail, and now they express a willingness to include that in the new design, bake it into the design process. Those are just some examples. Final example I add is we should try and make every investment in trees an investment in people, and use workforce and career pathways as a way to do this. There's a long-term projected shortage in tree care and landscape industry, not only locally but statewide and nationally. There's a huge need, and it pays a living wage, $18 an hour start often. Tree cutters are making $40 grand a year. National Grid could hire 24 people right now to meet their needs in the northern region. Okay. That is the breezy summary.
Okay. I don't know if anyone has any other questions.
When you said at the end there that National Grid could hire 24, they have the capacity to hire those right now, or
They have
a
huge need to hire people, both one-person crews that check reliability of lines. That's a lot of what they do is driven by the Public Service Commission. So when they reach a certain number of outages, they get dinged by the state. So they spend a lot of time improving reliability, and that's mainly getting trees out of the way of the lines. But then the crews, the companies they hire, it's hard work being a line clearance tree trimmer, and they always need an influx of new employees. But so do all the local landscapers that I work with that are contractors with parks. And
so there's a lot of potential there in that field, you're saying?
There is, and so it's a matter of setting up an organization. I have in mind Onondaga Earth Corps to help them get out of startup mode, and help them focus on the career pathway models that we know work. And for them, it's just a matter of bandwidth. Getting more people enrolled in doing this kind of work, and using the canopy goal idea as a way to create a program that would make that work. And funders want that, they're looking for that, and they're ready to pay for that.
Just going through the images that you shared, so
That's not us, FYI. Sorry about that. No, that's Baltimore. Sorry about that. But that is us.
This is us.
Correct.
Same concept.
Yeah.
what feeds into this? Like, what data feeds into it? Like, how low level? Is this a satellite that's reading temperature?
Yeah, that's a satellite surface temperature reading, Landsat 8 satellite with 30-meter pixels. So it's pretty gross measurement, but it gives a clear picture of what's going on. Next time we do it, we'll do it at 6 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. That'll tell us a lot.
And then the next page, you show a picture of a surface lot that's full of cars with no trees downtown. Are there, it seems, for instance, what's the plaza in DeWitt that was dead for a really long time and now it's like got everything imaginable. But
Town Center?
Yeah, I think so. But they've landscaped. Like basically part of their transformation was they landscaped everything and it went from having like giant surface lots to having lots that have trees everywhere. Mm-hmm. How do we make it so these lots don't look like this, but so there's actually trees to retain the water and to cool the surface and to make it look better, frankly, because it seems like there's not, if you were to plant trees the way I would want them in this lot, you would make less money because there would be fewer parking spots.
You're always, well, first of all, that'll be driven by whatever our zoning law says, or if not the zoning law, the updated tree ordinance. So at the end of this process, first of all, to answer your question, there's a design process for that. So if we're going to require developers to have a certain ratio of trees per lot, in Buffalo, I think it's 1 tree for every 20 spaces or 1 tree for every 10 spaces. Some have a canopy cover goal. It's all what our threshold is of the balance of mandate versus impact on business, and trying to find that sweet spot. There's design solutions to all that. When we're done with this process, we'll ask council to adopt this plan, and then we'll draft new ordinance changes that will reflect some of the things that would address that. Like Price Right is a great example on the South Ave. That was 30% canopy cover before that was built. There's no interior design requirements. They built a huge parking lot, and if the one holdout homeowner would have not sold, he would have been right next to a heat island that would have made his house probably 10 degrees warmer, and that's not an exaggeration. I mean, it's a giant lot, no interior trees. We did manage to get them to improve the buffers on it. Right. But they had really tight margins on that project and had no appetite for added costs like that weren't originally baked into weren't part of the original expectation.
It seems like the tree plan might be a place to at least aspirationally say what, like the 1 tree per 10 cars on a surface lot or something like that. Because I assume it would have to be put into like a rezone type of.
Well, we have a municipal tree ordinance. It go into that. That was written in 58, barely updated in 81. So it's time to revisit that, just like rezone, and put in things like that if they're not appropriate to rezone, depending on. Those are the kind of ideas, and we talk about them at the end of the plan, at the end of those handouts about the zoning ideas, the ordinance ideas.
Does the higher rate of tree canopy correspond to like steeper geography? For instance, like the valley and southwest corner of the city has higher rates of tree canopy than everywhere else for the most part, but they also have, like, if they didn't have trees, they would have major runoff problems because it's all.
It's definitely one of the biggest separators between those with those neighborhoods with canopy and not are like forest patches, contiguous forest patches. So if you want to get canopy up in a place like the near west side, which only has 19%, then you would want to take some vacant lots that we think are not candidates for home building. And you would want to come up with an effective way to reforest them that satisfies all our public safety concerns.
I'm sorry if you already covered this. I arrived late, but I was curious as to, so you developed the plan, you have the master plan. Where are we with funding and the budget of it? I mean, is it develop the plan and then we'll try to figure out how to implement later, or do you have budget set aside, or where would budget come from, or what does that look like as we try to implement?
I think you would look at it The plan proposes planting 3,500 trees a year, and that's a tall order, and that could have a high price tag. I think you got to look at the pieces of the pie. Maybe some incremental increases and capital budgets for planting, but you got to look at initiatives like I talked about with infill housing, large initiatives where you can bake the cost of the tree planting as part of the infrastructure cost for the project. So that's where, going back to something like putting in new water mains where they calculate every other cost but trees, that's a cost, and instead it's a cost that currently is not seen as an infrastructure cost. It's
Right,
and
it's not
they're the
baked
trees.
into the project,
Right.
yeah.
But we've been talking about that for a while now, and that's on
Is that
that's
something
on Corey's radar, I would have to say.
Is that something you'd be looking at? Would that be you mentioned the outdated legislation regarding trees. Is that something that would be dealt with legislatively or at the city level, or would that be a council issue or an administration issue?
I see the master plan as a way to create dialogue for all of us so that you as counselors and that all the departments know what the issues are, and then that provides the platform for writing a new ordinance with updated laws that provide better protection for and better design for trees.
So
And
both
we would
potentially,
update the ordinance.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, and if I'm making you repeat yourself, I'm just
I don't
trying to
mind.
wrap my head around this. So when you say it's not, well, like when we go through, like, for example, I'm going to use the Butternut Circle project. Is it that in the past we haven't calculated in adding trees onto and that's when we do the actual infrastructure changes, we don't add that into it as just a city, or it's something that doesn't qualify at the state level when we use grants?
It's probably some of that, but it's just a matter of practice. I mean, before any of our time, before any of us were here,
Yeah.
DPW sidewalk contractors would go remove the sidewalks and not even tell us if there was a tree there. And trees would
Just like
fall
tree.
over in the street. And then they would say, "What's wrong with your tree?" And we would say, "You removed the sidewalk and cut all the roots." And that's why, we just got lucky that it didn't land on somebody.
Yeah.
So, again, if water is a must-have infrastructure, and everybody understands that, and no one questions it. And same with sewer. We need our sewage to go down a pipe and go to the treatment plant. But trees were never part of that. They weren't considered a capital asset and planned for. It was just an amenity that maybe you had, maybe you didn't. Oh, we can't afford money for trees. So we're trying to just put trees as infrastructure, like every other infrastructure, planned as part of the group.
Okay.
And I would say we're significantly better today than we were 5 years ago.
How the invasive species? You have a list of the invasives.
Yeah.
You don't have a list of the natives, but I was trying to do the math on the percent invasive.
Right, so that's percent of stem count. So if you look at that, there are 3 natives highlighted and 2 invasives. We've been monitoring for 20 years 200 plots, which are the previous. Maybe they're not in this one. We've been monitoring change of our urban forest, and we know that buckthorn has grown from 7% of the stem count to 21%. And sugar maple has gone, our state tree has gone down, and our other natives have gone down, while invasives.
You're saying all of these on this list are invasive, right?
No.
No.
I'm just showing you a list of species and the change
Right.
in percent. So sugar maple is a native. We used to be 14% of the stems. Now it's 10% of the stems.
This is a little confusing because the overall thing says invasive. I think it's a separate slide.
This is highlighting the invasives are growing fast and impacting our forest. The take-home message is buckthorn is 21 out of 100 trees in our city, and it used to be 7 out of 100.
Right.
I can
I just can't
do
tell which are the invasives and which are, as a non-expert.
right.
I just
That's
don't
why
know. Yeah.
the only ones that are natives are here.
So just
these two.
he needs an asterisk at the bottom. You need to just tell the normal person that, average person, right? That's what I'm saying.
Something
Yes.
Noted.
I would just maybe say here are, you could almost have a header that's invasives and natives, and you could show
Right.
Those
there
are
was a
highlighted.
Understood.
Yes.
You're schooling me on good presentation technique is what you're trying to
I'd
say.
like to capitalize them all too, or uncapitalize. It's what consistent.
Is this Lincoln Park?
No? European and Norway are supposed to be capitalized.
So if I could just hit one more before, you want to keep going, Councilor Rudd?
Go ahead.
Cool. So we kind of talked about, I'm still kind of unclear about where you anticipate. I mean, I know it's so as I
Funding.
understood your comment, that the master plan is kind of aspirational, right? We're
Correct.
We're doing it to set hopeful goals, things to aim at. But have we had conversations with the so you said the goal is 3,500 new trees each year? Have we talked with the administration about putting more capital spending towards those trees, or is that anticipated down the pipeline, or?
Not directly for this plan. We are proposing a capital budget increase for tree planting this year, as an aside. But there's a variety of ways that I think we can fund this. That would be one of them, but it's going to take many pieces of the pie. One worth considering is there's a whole new protocol for carbon credits for companies that voluntarily want to offset their carbon. And it's aligned with the official carbon exchange. So we can package projects to get trees planted, and corporations that want to demonstrate that they're offsetting their carbon, there's a way to do that.
Awesome.
So that would be one way.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Workforce development is a viable way to increase tree planting.
Awesome.
Because there are fundings for that.
Yeah.
I've applied for grants through the state to pay for planting trees or pruning trees, and when I do it with contractors, it doesn't get funded. When I do it with Earth Corps, it gets funded.
And what if you could just one last question, and then we got to wrap up. What does 3,500 trees look like budget-wise? Like how much would it be? Like on average, how much is 100 trees? How much?
Depends what size you're planting. So if we did it all as our typical big tree, it'd be a budget buster. It'd be 3,500 times 350.
Okay.
But like if you do tree giveaways, you would be doing small seedlings that would be easy to give away.
And how much are those typically?
Those can be 10 cents to $1 each, something like
The
that.
3,500, because that on your takeaway from the report, you said 70,000 trees. I think it's over 20 years. So you're
Correct.
basically saying 3,500 a year for 20 years.
Yep.
So, and right now we plant like 300 or something, 500.
We plant like 900.
900, under 1,000.
Yeah.
So even in the plan, we're not planning to do 3,500 municipally, right? We're planning on like private
About
owners.
20% of that. Yeah, we would want to plant on city lands about 1,400 or 1,500 a year.
We want to double.
1,600 a year. 1,600 a year. And then the rest would be private lands.
Yeah, my assumption would be is, we want to set a model similar to what other cities are doing so that we're requiring with development that occurs. And then probably some of it's going to come from taking a look at when we do, say, a DPW project and road reconstruction, that we're going to sit there and say, okay, along with that grant funding, we want to tie in X amount of trees along with this project, right? I mean, it's not solely taken on by the city. It's not solely taken on by businesses. It's everybody shares a little piece of the pie to get us to the 3,500 each year that we need.
We want 80% of that to come from other sources. That would be the plan.
Yeah.
And, we don't speak to dollars in the plan, but I'm thinking about it the same way you are.
I know we're out of time, but when you show this image,
Yeah.
what are we supposed to take away?
Takeaway is land use is one of the greatest impacts. Land use change is one of the biggest impacts on urban forest canopy.
This all, where is this?
That's Strathmore with Hiawatha Lake in the foreground. And Strathmore got its trees back, but near West Side lost all its trees. And so that's highlighted in the next slide.
Maybe there's more explanation. Like, these are images from the report.
They're not. They're my examples of how land use change impacts trees, tree cover.
Because this is when the houses
This
were
is
first
a well-off
built.
neighborhood where there's investment, and this is a now poor red line neighborhood where there's disinvestment and therefore no canopy from here to here. It was over 50% in the near west side. Now it's down to 19%.
So you have one neighborhood that lost tree cover, another that gained tree cover.
You got it.
Okay. I got you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Right, that's my meeting.
There you go, buddy. You on mute, Billy?
I think so. Yeah, everything got changed up. I don't know what I'm on.
I know, now that these are important, we gotta like...
I don't know, but the DPW stuff's so riveting, I want to be here.